I'm sure many of you have dealt with a man who doesn't know what the hell he wants, all right? Like, this man is vague with his intentions. This man wants to go with the flow, or he flat out doesn't want anything serious, whatever, right? And for you, depending on where you are at this point in life, you may feel like, yo, I don't want that. I want more. I want something real. And it seems so difficult to find. And then next thing you know, you can meet a guy and this man is moving at the speed of light. Like he wants to make it happen ASAP. And the natural inclination is to be like, whoa, 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 slow down, hold on. What's going on here? Why are you moving so fast? Because it's not common for us to come across that, especially you ladies, especially in today's world. And there are many occasions where him moving so fast are huge red flags, huge signs of something more devious going on, right? But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's real. It's genuine. But I know it can be difficult for you to decipher what's going on here. So I want to help you better process and handle a situation like this that you may one day come across or you're currently dealing with, where a man is moving too fast. So the first thing I want you to do is do not freak out, okay? Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's very natural for a guy who wants to move things along very quickly for you to be overwhelmed by that, all right? For you to question it. If you start telling your friends or family members, they're gonna look at you with that side eye like, wait a minute, what is he up to, right? But you have to make sure that you don't move into panic mode, all right? Because in panic mode, you will not make wise decisions. You will tend to overthink in the situation. And now you could either find yourself falling into the trap of the man who's tricking you or pushing away the man who's trying to be real with you. So to make sure we handle this properly, you've got to calm yourself down. You've also got to make sure that in this approach of not panicking, that you don't go tell too many different people. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's always great to get wise counsel, right? But I think we have to be careful, because a lot of your friends and family, though they may have good intentions, they don't have a deeper understanding of what's really going on here. Some of them may speak from a very biased perspective, and though they're trying to do what they think is best for you, they will lead you down the wrong path, all right? For example, you may have some who will push you into embracing this man moving so quickly because they so badly want to see you in a relationship. They so badly want to see you have kids, right? So instead of properly evaluating things, they're going to be like, oh, give it a chance. He's a great guy. You know, I like him, blah, 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 blah. Or on the flip side, let's say they've been burned before. So now, because of their trauma, they can't look at this situation from a positive perspective. And instead of considering the possibility that this could be real, they will tend to lean on the negative. No, he's full of it. He's not, being honest with you. Something must be wrong with him, blah, 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 blah. Either way, you've got to be very careful with who you're talking to and where are they pulling their information from, all right? But back to not panicking, you also want to make sure that you don't start being very reactive in the moment, because again, in being reactive and losing sight of what's going on, you can misstep in a lot of different ways. And so ultimately, if we're going to achieve not panicking and doing this the right way, if you find yourself overwhelmed, the first thing I want you to do to help calm you down, other than taking a step back naturally. And when I say a step back, I'll explain more later in the video about stepping back. But I'm always going to encourage you to pray, all right? Because that's a great way to kind of get yourself calm, centered, your mind in the right place. I think what will also be great for you to do is write down how you're feeling, all right? so that you can understand all the different emotions running through you right now. Some of it might be excitement. Some of it might be complete terror, some of it, your skepticisms, but the things that you see good. Basically, by allowing yourself to kind of structure your thoughts and put it out in front of you, you'll be able to work through it all a lot easier and see things more clearly. All right. And this will help you make a better decision and understand how you need to move forward. All right. So now the second thing I want you to do when he's moving too fast is assess how you really feel. So piggybacking off of not panicking and writing down all your feelings. What happens to a lot of women is that the decision to be or not be with that man or move forward with him is typically based upon his actions and the evaluation of him. So it's like, okay, well, what's his relationship history? How has he been treating you? Different things on his resume, trying to understand if he really genuinely loves you and cares about you, or is he playing games? It's him. And it's not saying that we shouldn't be taking a look at him, but understand that until we recognize how you feel, nothing else matters. All right? Because, for example, if let's just say you realize, you know what? I don't really like this guy. I'm enjoying the attention he's giving me. All right? I'm enjoying the potential that this can become something serious, because I've been wanting a relationship for so long, but I'm not really into this guy. Well, if that is the case, then whether he likes you, doesn't like you, he's genuine or not, it doesn't matter, because you shouldn't be with him. You see what I'm saying? Like, that cancels everything out. And again, I have to say, so many women have chosen or accepted being with a man with this idea that, well, he loves me so much. And even going with this idea of, well, isn't it best to choose a man who loves me more than I love him? No, it's not. No, it is not. That is a recipe for disaster. I'm not going to sit here and say no one's ever survived that, but the vast majority of people end up paying a huge price for trying to select someone who loves them more. All right. I have a whole video on it, but let me just say this. I won't go too deep. A big reason why choosing a man who loves you more than you love him never works is because you're never really into him. And since you're never really into him, you can never truly pour into him the way that he will need, and he can never be the man you truly need. So there's a void, there's a disconnect from the jump, all right? Which is a setup for bigger problems later. When two people genuinely love each other or are genuinely into each other, no one can quantify who loves who more. If you're even able to come to that conclusion, that tells you you don't have strong feelings for him or strong enough feelings for him. Because as a woman, when you feel strong, if anything, when you feel genuinely strongly about a man, you probably feel like you love him more. So if you can say to yourself, nah, he loves me more than I love him, oh, then we already know it's not going to work. So getting back to assessing your feelings, again, if you're not truly into him, the man, not the circumstances, but the man himself, it won't matter. But on the flip side, let's just say in you assessing things, you realize you are feeling strongly about him. It may be scary. You may be struggling to embrace it for what it is, but you can acknowledge through being real with yourself that you are feeling this connection. You are feeling this strong desire and draw to this man. I always want to stress the man, not the circumstances, because people get caught up in the hype of the circumstances and not the actual person. But you can say, no, I want the person, right? Well, now that allows us to we can work from there in seeing how we can proceed, because now we can eliminate the concern of, is he love bombing you? Now, for those of you who don't know the term love bombing, and I have a video on that as well, essentially, it's this man or woman, whoever, this partner coming and showering you with attention and desire and wanting to move things fast and all these different things. basically overwhelming you with all these feelings so that they can move things along. But love bombers tend to be narcissistic people. They're setting you up for trouble later. But I always argue that it's not love bombing if the feelings are mutual. You see what I'm saying? Love bombing is a one-sided thing. But if you feel strongly about this man genuinely, then that's not a love bomb. You guys are feeling potentially a connection, a real thing here. And so I wouldn't want you, dismissing the potential of this relationship because of how fast it's moving, because you've been told that no, when it moves this fast, something's wrong. And that's not always the case. You know what I'm saying? That again, we got to account for the fact that, let me say this, especially as we get older, understand that we've met a lot of people in our lifetime. You may have dated many people in your lifetime. It's reasonable to make the argument that by that point in your life, you know what you like and don't like. You've seen so much of the opposite sex that when someone separates the pack in a way that no one else has ever done, it hits you like a ton of bricks. So that person experiencing that doesn't need weeks, months, years to be like, oh, this is something different. This is something that I'm truly emotionally invested in or want to invest in. They can see it clearly very fast. You know what I'm saying? If anything, what I would argue is that it's not that people don't see it quickly. It's that a lot of people struggle to embrace it because of fear, because of, again, outside noise telling them, no, this can't be it. And I'll even mention, I had a couple recently who came to my event. I'm forgetting which city it was, but they came to one of my tour events a couple weeks ago, and they got married in 3 months. Now, listen, I'm not saying for everybody to go out there and get married in 3 months, right? But they explained to me how my video and my videos on love bombing, breaking things down, really helped them push past that negativity and that doubt that people were casting on them, and that even they may have been struggling within themselves. And now they're happily married. You know what I'm saying? And I wish you could see their energy, like how positive and happy they were and excited they were. But to get back to the point, the thing is, again, you want to assess how you feel, because that is where we now can determine if we give this a chance or we need to cut this man loose ASAP. All right, so let's keep this going. So the next thing I want you to do when he's moving too fast is do not evaluate things based off of time. All right. So what I'm saying here is a lot of people put this generic time frame in their head of when it's acceptable to move into a relationship or when it's acceptable to get married, things of that nature. Some people might think, well, again, getting married 3, 6 months, whatever, that's way too fast. That's nonsense. That's crazy talk, right? Some people think you should be waiting 2, 3 years. All right. I would argue past 2 years is too much. But that's a whole different discussion. All right. Either way, time is a huge factor for a lot of people in saying whether this is real or not. And I believe that is the wrong way to look at it, because what determines whether you can properly evaluate things is not the amount of months, years, weeks, but the amount of actual quality time you two put into getting to know each other. All right. So basically what I'm saying is you could have a couple date and in 6 months, hell, even in a year, still not scratch the deeper surfaces of certain things they need to talk about, sharing things about themselves, opening up, allowing them to really see what they're getting themselves into and if they're on the same page. However, you could have two people in a month's time go through all of that, literally spending all the time. So to add even more context, you could have two people dating for 6 months, but in that 6 months, they talk here and there. They've gone on a few dates, here and there. So they're in a process, but there's still much to learn. But the people in 1 month, they've been going out a few times a week. They're talking on the phone every night. They're asking all kinds of questions. They're diving deep into each other. They don't need the same amount of quote unquote time that the other folks need, Because they're doing the work. That's the key. Are you doing the work and gathering the information in order to understand what you are dealing with and what you may potentially be getting yourself into? When people say, well, you don't really know someone even after a few years, what's really happening in most situations is they're not asking the right questions. That's it. And when they have asked the questions, their partner may have dodged the conversation or danced around it. And rather than make sure we discuss this, they allow them to do that. And they push the can down the road. And then when something new comes up, I never knew this about you. Yeah, well, you never asked. Or you never pushed the issue. So I think we have to get it out of our head because, again, too many people get tripped up by, well, it hasn't been long enough yet. Stop saying it hasn't been long enough. Have you gathered enough information? And just so we're clear, information such as, do we want the same things? All right? What we require being in a relationship together. I can't tell you how many people get into a relationship or a marriage without ever discussing what their partner truly requires at that level of commitment. And I say it that way, that level of commitment, because what people may require of you in the dating phase can be different than what they require of you in the quote unquote boyfriend-girlfriend phase. And then it can go up another few levels in the marriage phase. You know what I'm saying? So one example is during the dating process, you ain't got to check in. You don't got to let them know where you're at all the time. They're not sweating it. It's no big deal. We're just getting to know each other. Boyfriend and girlfriend, they might still give you a little more leeway. When you're out late at night, they may not stress it that much because you're just boyfriend and girlfriend. But when you get married, okay, you got to check in. You got to be home by a certain time, depending on the couple, of course. But that's what happens with most people. It's a lot more strict. And so if you don't discuss these things, then you're in for a rude awakening a lot of times. So when things do go left, it's not because people got together too quickly in regards to time. It's because they got together before they dive deeper into different issues and discussions that need to be had. All right. So reframe the way that you look at this and assess it from that perspective, and you'll set yourself up for better success. And you know what? And another thing real quick. So my videographer just asked me about deadlines, right? And I'm someone who does believe in deadlines. But I want you to understand that because, again, I don't want you to evaluate things based off specific time frames. Though I do think there are going to be moments where specific time frames may be more applicable, all right? So for example, if we're trying to work on an issue, we may agree on, okay, we're gonna give this 30 days to see if we can get this on the right track, and if not, we move forward, all right? So I think in ways like that, this is where time can come into play. However, when it comes to deadlines as far as progressing this relationship, I think the deadline has to be about when you reach a point where you feel like, I have shown who I am, we have covered all the bases, they know what they're gonna get at this point. All right, it's time to make a decision. Like, and if you reach that point and then you have a discussion, they're like, well, I need more time. Okay, we can maybe agree upon, again, well, listen, we can give this another 60 days. And I know for some people that sounds crazy, but here's the problem. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people not enforce some sort of timeline, deadline, structure to, listen, we gotta progress, and end up years in a dead-end relationship. End up having babies with a person they were never going to get married to. All right? And some people say, well, not everybody wants marriage. A lot of people do. A lot of people do. But regardless, whatever they desired, they were not able to achieve, and they end up staying with someone who was not going to give it to them because being too afraid to say, well, there's some kind of a deadline. So I do want to add that in there to help you understand there are situations where time frames are applicable, but ultimately it's about when you have reached a point where you feel like, I know I've shown who I am, and I've given the proper information, what you want to do. We're either going to do something or we're not, but we can't keep dragging this on. So here's another thing I want you to do when he's moving too fast, and that's be honest about your concerns. All right. So I do think in most cases, a woman is saying, hey, I think things are moving a bit fast, right? But I think that there are some times where that isn't being said. But even when it is, are you explaining and breaking down why this is too soon right now? It shouldn't just be we're moving too fast because it's only been X amount of weeks or months, right? Again, going back to it's not really about the amount of time in that structure, but it should be, hey, we're moving too fast because we haven't discussed some of these things. We're moving too fast because we don't know what we both want yet. We're moving too fast because maybe I'm not ready for that level of commitment yet. Whatever the case may be, you want to be clear about it because, again, when you're not being honest and you're not speaking your true mind on how you're feeling, well, it's very easy to get caught up in this individual trying to move things along. And again, whether it's the guy trying to love bomb you, play you, all right, he's gonna try to push this to his desired destination as quickly as possible to try to lock you down, and he doesn't care. And let me just say this, I feel the need, it kind of hit my spirit, so I have to mention it. One of the other things I want you to be aware of and be careful with, there are men who will try to impregnate you on purpose to lock you into their life. All right. I think in society, we speak plenty about women trying to use babies to keep men around and all those types of things. But we don't shine enough of a light on there are men doing the same thing. All right. And so you've got to be careful. You got to be careful if you're going to have sex with them, if you're going to lay down with them. Be mindful, especially with the guy who's trying to move things along quickly, all right? And more specifically, he's trying to move things along quickly, and you cannot say that you're genuinely feeling that connection, that same thing. So if it's one of those, I'm enjoying the ride, I'm enjoying the feelings, and I'm getting caught up in the moment, be careful because, again, what triggered this thought, what triggered my spirit, I guess, telling me to speak on this was me saying, he's trying to move things as quickly as possible to his destination. And that destination is to lock you into his life. That destination is to have consistent, ongoing access to you, which is why you'll see some scenarios where a man will impregnate the woman. When the child comes, the woman, in somewhere in the process, the woman decides she doesn't want to be with the man. And this man completely turns his back on the child. And you wonder why? Well, the reason why in many cases is because he was only having that baby to have access to you. So once the access is removed, he's like, forget the child. Sadly. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's just something to be aware of because it does happen. I've seen a lot of women. I think there's a lot of women who've gotten trapped that way and don't even know it. Don't even realize that this man planned it, knew exactly what he was doing. And it's like, it's kind of wild because having a baby with someone is an even bigger, deeper commitment than marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get married, not that we want people to get divorced, but that option exists. But once you have a baby with this individual, that's it. You got to deal with them for pretty much the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? So just had to throw that in there. But getting back to the point at hand, again, whether it's the man trying to manipulate you, trap you, or even the man who's genuine about you, but is so caught up in his love for you, all right? Because sometimes someone can love you and they still infatuation can still creep in too, all right? It's not always completely separate. You know what I'm saying? Because they're so excited and it's just so like, I've never met a woman like this before. And they're just so, caught up in that and this connection that they're feeling with you. So either way, the point is, if you're not honest and clear, all right, it's going to be very easy for you to fall into this fast moving situation. So being transparent is going to help slow things down. But also with the man who is genuine about you, being honest and transparent could also help you weed out the genuine guy versus the love bomber manipulator. Because in a lot of situations, the love bomber manipulator is going to try to pressure you and move past how you feel or your concerns for the sake of, again, trying to reach his desired destination. The man who is genuine about you, cares about you, is going to be more sensitive. It doesn't mean he's not going to want to encourage we move things forward because he feels so strongly and certain about things. But he's going to be, if it's making you uncomfortable, the last thing he wants to do is to make you uncomfortable or unhappy. So he's going to be much more willing to be like, okay, well, you know what? Cool, let's slow things down. He can think with a clearer head of, okay, you know what? She has a point. Maybe we can just take a little bit more time. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. But the manipulator, he's trying to move past that as quickly as possible. So be honest, be transparent, be clear about the why, and that will help in this process of evaluating if it's real or not. All right, so before I continue, real quick, so many of you have asked me about one-on-one coaching, but I have so many requests, it's hard to get to everyone. What I do have for you is the opportunity to have your personal questions answered in my special coaching program. Go to receivingmyblessings.com, click the link in the description or in the comments section. We got videos on tapping into your feminine energy, hearing God, meeting relationship-minded men, finding your purpose, so many more things, as well as live Q&As where I answer your questions. Thousands of women are getting help by this program. Trust me, you are going to love it. So again, go to receivingmyblessings.com or click the link in the description or in the comment section. All right, so now the next thing I want you to do when he's moving too fast is to not confuse slowing down with pulling back. So what I have seen in a lot of these situations is, again, people get a little scared. They get a little overwhelmed. That outside noise starts creeping in. Different people saying, oh, no, you guys are doing too much. It's too soon, so on and so forth. All right. And so now, in an attempt to slow things down, and let's just speak on the woman is actually pulling back. All right. So slowing down in this scenario in a way that I think is best simply means we slow down the progression of how we're moving things along. So essentially, okay, if we've been talking for a month and he's ready to make this a commitment, all right? And you're like, okay, I feel like this is too soon. Slowing down simply means, all right, maybe this month for me is too soon. And maybe even though I told you don't use time frames like that, let's just say for you, you would feel much more comfortable if we just gave another couple months, right? Okay, cool. So slowing down means we're going to stretch out this process of continuing to get to know each other, but not then taking that next step into full commitment after another month or so. But what's happening instead is people pull back. And pull back means after we've had this discussion, well, now you're not calling him as much. Now you're making yourself less available. Now you're slowing down on the date, or not slowing down, pulling back on how often you guys are seeing each other and dating. So what's happening to some of you is that in an attempt to control and manage your feelings, you pull back because it's almost like, okay, this is so intense, this is so much, and maybe let's just say you really like this guy. In order for you to calm down your like and not do more, you feel like I have to retreat. The problem is, if it's a genuine situation, right? Now we can easily start to throw things off. We can start to plant seeds of doubt, because to that man who you just told, I like you, but let's slow things down, he starts to think, well, maybe she used that as an excuse because she doesn't like me like that. Maybe she's not that serious. Oh, what's going on? So now he starts to feel more insecure and scared, and he may go different ways with it. He may start to pull back too, because now he's trying to quote unquote protect himself, or thinking that maybe I have to play hard so that because, maybe I was being too thirsty or doing too much. So maybe if I hold back now, she'll respect me more and we can move things along. And do you see how it just starts to go haywire from there? It just really gets all mixed up and messed up. So you want to make sure that when you have that discussion, if we've already evaluated the other things on this list and we've determined that this is something genuine and real, then slowing down is okay, pulling back is not. All right? We still have to continue with the same efforts, and we want to make that clear in the discussion like, hey, I want us to still continue to talk how we're talking and go out and all these things, but let's just slow down how fast we are to move it to the next level. That would make things so much better. And just so we can acknowledge it, if it is a guy that you're dealing with who's the manipulator, love bomber, well, at that point, we shouldn't be dealing with him anyway. So forget pulling back or slowing down. Just get the hell out. like run, go, leave that situation ASAP. If we've already determined, nah, this isn't it. This is not real. This is not genuine, so on and so forth. So understand that, because again, I've seen so many situations go left and potentially great relationships be sabotaged because of it. And the reality is that it's because fear has crept in. And fear has destroyed so many relationships, so many potential relationships, so many current relationships. All right. And we've got to learn how to not let fear guide us, but let faith be what allows us to see things for what it needs to be seen or how it needs to be seen. All right. So got a couple more to tell you. The next thing on this list that I want you to do when he's moving too fast, and I've kind of already spoke on it, but we'll just highlight it for a quick second, is do not let other people influence you. All right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it is natural for us when we come across situations like this, and just various situations in our life, to go speak to somebody. All right. And that's usually friend, family member, someone. And again, as I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, you just have to be really careful with that, because you don't know where their advice is really coming from. Like I've seen situations where people have told a woman, no, don't go talk to this guy, or this situation wouldn't be good for you. Don't do it. Thank God the woman did not listen to them, right? She did what she needed to do or was best for her. And years down the road, she's now happily married to this individual. And the fears and negativity that those friends projected on her, again, though with good intent, I want to make that clear. It's not that people are intentionally trying to sabotage you. There are cases where that can happen. But in many cases, they're genuinely speaking from where they think is a good place and what they think is sound advice. But the average person struggles to separate themselves from your situation. And I don't want to, this is no shade to women, because I love y'all, right? I love y'all with all my heart. But I have noticed it happens a lot more with women, where you'll ask for their advice and they're kind of giving it to you as far as how they would handle, like they're putting themselves in the situation. And so once they've put themselves in it, any of their own personal triggers that they have end up dictating their advice. Any biases that they have end up dictating their advice. They're not, and again, I don't want to just put it on women, because I think people in general struggle to sometimes detach themselves and really view it from the outside looking in, all right? Without interjecting themselves into it, where they can give a more sound, I want to use the word pure, guidance, okay? So all that to say, you have to be careful. And ultimately, and this brings me to my last point, you got to do what's best for you, all right? At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. You cannot let other people ruin or run your life. You cannot let fear run your life. You just have to be able to learn how to process and evaluate things in a way that's best for you. But yes, understand that even when we do that, does it mean we will always get it right? No. But sometimes we have to find peace in our own way of coming to the conclusion of what is best. Now, my way of finding peace, and the one I would suggest to you, is talking to God. All right. My peace is knowing, listen, I prayed about this. I really listened to what my spirit is telling me. And sometimes it's stuff I don't want to hear, or I don't like the answer to, you know what I'm saying? Or it doesn't make any sense to me. But I take peace in knowing that I'm accepting what I feel strongly that God is telling me. If not, I'm not 100% certain that's what God is telling me. And so that's how I'm able to just move forward. And from there, I kind of have this mindset of, all right, whatever happens from here is supposed to happen because this is where God wanted me to be. And this is what God wanted me to do. So I encourage you to learn how to embrace that process as well. But ultimately, you've got to do what is best for you and understand that, yes, there are tons of relationships that are two people who are happily together, happily married, all these things. And love happened very fast for them. And things moved along very fast. It's not always this bad thing. Again, it's not the speed at which it moves. It's more so of, are we, again, addressing all the things that need to be addressed, having all those conversations? And are we looking at this through a healed heart? So let me say this before we wrap this up. It's really hard to evaluate who's real and who's not when you're holding on to past hurt and trauma. All right? It's really hard to tap into your spirit and hear God clearer when you're holding on to past pain and trauma. So if you want to make your ability to evaluate things much more efficient, then I encourage you to make sure to heal, all right? Heal from your past, because that will unlock your ability to be able to make better decisions, move in the direction that you need to move in, and receive the blessings that God has for you. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Now check this one out over here on the 5 boundaries you need to set with men in a relationship. It's boundaries with his mother. All right. Now, of course, this is not going to be an issue for everyone, right? But in my position, I've seen plenty of relationships be very